Planning Board meeting, very first of this year. I hope we have a successful 2025. Will everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a couple decisions this afternoon. Karen Spitlick, 17 Cross Lane. Anybody here for the applicant? I need a motion to accept the decision as written.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Verizon New York, 74 Sunset Avenue. Anybody here for the applicant? I need a motion to accept the decision as written.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll start with the fill application. We have one fill application for review. Okay. So then we'll dish right into Quantuck Beach Club Incorporated. Happy New Year.
Good evening, Heather Wright from applicant Quantuck Beach Club. So we received comments from Britton and from Ron. We're in the process of working through those comments and incorporating them into our sorry. Okay, sorry about that.
Went dead.
Incorporating them into the formal plans, but we wanted to come back here just to see if the board had any additional comments, if you're in agreement with the comments from your professionals, and, you know, 'cause we'd like to proceed with the detailed plans and move this towards a public hearing.
Well, I read through all of the comments that we received and they seem well-founded to me. I mean, unless you have some objections to them or some comments that you'd like to make regarding them, I think they stand on their own merits.
No, we would agree. I mean, I think we're working through incorporating most of the suggested changes and answering your questions. I mean, I think there was a question in some of the comments regarding lighting. This is a club that operates during the day. It's only in the summer months. We maybe have 4 sort of sunset type activities in the evening over the course of the whole summer. So I think the lighting will be, you know, minimal, except for like ingress and egress, because we don't really have.
Well, we're not looking for them to put in more lighting than is needed, are we?
No, I just thought we needed it on the record that they're not gonna do any nighttime activities, because if they're doing activities after dark, theoretically, they'll need lighting. They're not doing anything, I don't see a need for it. But I think we needed something on the record that says this isn't gonna be a problem.
Sure, no problem. And the other thing, I think the other kind of question in the comments was about the parking. We were just trying to be as compliant with the code as possible, but we certainly are, we don't need all of that parking. We don't have a parking problem now as the club stands. So to the extent that removing some of that parking is a possibility, I actually think that would be,
Would we land bank the parking? I mean, can we just plan for it and just not do it? I mean, you know, because that way it's already been determined. You don't have to build it. But you have your right to if we land bank it, just so you don't have to build all of them at one time.
Britain raised something with the east, on the north side, the easterly portion, which is currently overflow parking, has some kind of a conservation easement where it can only be used in an emergency or, you know.
Just the third lot to the east.
correct.
The conservation easement says that it can only be used if you show that you have a parking issue.
Yeah,
So we shouldn't really propose parking, knowing that we don't have a parking issue, you should really keep the parking on those first 2 western lots and that third lot.
That's
Unless you
fine.
conclude that it's needed, which I don't think.
I don't believe it is. I mean, I think overflow parking maybe occurs on 4th of July, you know, so I would agree with that.
And just lay it out as land bank, or lay it out as, you know, so you can see how much is there.
Sure. But other than that, you know, like I said, we're working on all the comments and we
Don, do you have anything?
Yes,
to add?
Heather, if you do away with some parking, would there be, we just don't wanna see a cement area there. Would there be additional landscaping possibly in that area or?
Well, there's already landscaping in front of that lot and it's subject to a conservation easement
Okay.
that is designed to protect the view shed from the bay, across Dune Road. So, it would pretty much remain right in its existing condition.
Larry, you got anything? Okay. All right, so we'll anticipate your renewed technical data and I don't see any reason why we can't. Are we looking to advance to a public hearing prior to us receiving that? Is that what you're asking?
Well, that is what we're asking because we're in agreement with the comments and we wanted to make sure the board didn't have any different or additional comments. So we'd like to proceed towards, a public hearing, obviously with a submission into the board in sufficient, in time for you to have time to review it prior
Well,
to,
that's gonna be critical.
of course.
Yeah, if the board feels like the plan is ripe enough for public hearing at this point, we should commence with secret. It's on listed action, so that this board would be lead agency. We do our referrals, we set the public hearing. So.
Yeah, I don't see any reason. Anthony, do you have any objection to that?
I don't know. So we could initiate secret, just send the letters out.
Well, are we doing coordinated or not?
I mean, it's,
DEC, it's got trustees, it's got a lot of folks that,
Gotta be interested.
it's got,
Probably should.
it's got DEC, zoning board, obviously, and then the, health department.
Well, why not do that?
we send the letters out. They could always just say, we don't care.
I think we even talked to the zoning board and they consented, obviously, to this board being lead agency, so.
Right.
Because we need to close that before they can make determination.
So the sooner we start secret, get that coordination done, the better.
Are we
When
okay
they
with
make
that,
it-
Brendan?
When they make their submission, we'll do our coordination then set the public hearing.
Well, do we have enough to at least start send out the letter? I think we do, because that's a 30-day wait, right?
Yeah, we'll just ask again for the latest up-to-date digital sets. That makes it easiest for us to send out.
All right, so we'll get the mechanism rolling. In other words, Heather. So can we schedule it as a public hearing for the 23rd or no?
No, it'll have to be the February meeting at this point.
So can we do that? Obviously, I know the board needs the submission, in advance.
Yeah, I don't see any reason. I don't think we have any objection to it.
Depending on when the letters go out. Makes
need the 30
It makes the
days.
difference in first or second meeting. So that's the problem. So let's find out when the letters go out and then put you on for the next meeting. If
That's
that
fine
how it
too.
is.
That's fine too.
But we'll hope to get it on as soon as possible. That's it.
We'll get you on as soon as possible.
We don't have to decide. We don't have to decide.
Someone just wants to let me know when that is.
Yeah, as soon as we know.
You'll have to make the submission and then
Of course, I know.
that'll be the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Commit to be non-committal.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
We're excited for the project. We really are. 5 and 59 Old Riverhead Road, LLC. We apparently got some new information from you that has to be distributed. It was late.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Biaconello from Bowler Engineering. I'm working on behalf of the owner. The project was approved by the Board of Trustees with a special exception permit roughly a year ago. Since then, the owner has kind of shifted into a slightly new direction. Previously, there were 12 buildings proposed, 12 residential homes proposed, including 2 3-unit multifamily affordable units. Since then, those have been removed, and we have added an additional single-family unit. So now there's 11 total proposed single-family homes. We have kept the landscaping design pretty much the same as was previously seen and approved.
But we're gonna look at it all.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as we have an
Agreed.
opportunity to address what you delivered,
And then
we'll be able to discuss it intelligently.
I'm sorry, in terms of procedure, the trustees handed this back to us with their approving the prior don't they have to approve or give us a new referral to consider a new plan? I mean, where are we at here? Cause they're tinkering with the plan that's already been through the system. And it's gotta go back to the trustees, I assume, at some point.
Well, we have this, the multifamily is a little bit different because the way the code's written, you can't give a final determination until the trustees have acted. But we set up, beginning with Rogers, we did with the Gables, was this kind of two-part decision-making on your part, where you give a preliminary decision, enough to get it
Back to the.
over to the trustees then make their decision, gets it back to you for a final. You know, things can change along the way, and we just have to deal with it. We'll figure it out. If it needs to go back to the trustees, it does, but I haven't,
I just don't
I haven't looked
remember
at
it
it
happening
carefully
before,
enough
so I
to know
wasn't-
if whatever the trustees previously approved is
I think
good
the
enough for
changes
the
are
current plan.
significant, likely to end up.
That's what I figured. I mean, and if it's a special exception, they're gonna have to.
I think you understand that, right? I mean, if you change the scope of the project,
You're gonna
then
change-
some,
Understood, and when Rogers Avenue was done, that one did not back to the trustees after those changes.
that's true
And the affordable units were removed from that project.
as well.
It may depend on how much, I haven't evaluated, I don't know if anybody's really evaluated how much it's changed over the time, but I agree with you, that is, in that case, it was not deemed enough of a change to require going.
But again, we're not doing single family there either, right? At Rogers.
Correct.
And now we're talking about single family on your site, 11 single family units.
Correct.
So, I mean,
But it's slightly different.
apples aren't.
I get it.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see you again real soon, unless you've got more to add.
No, that was it. That was basically
Does
just-
anybody have any comments here?
Is this gonna be like a homeowners association? Kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, it's gonna be.
It's gonna be a condo. Quote
So
unquote
it's
condo.
basically the same,
Single family
A
homes.
single family.
yeah, so it's not detached homes.
Right. All right.
All right.
We look forward to looking at the new plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 128 Main Street. Can this board get a copy of the fire department report as to the cause of the fire? And are they gonna be giving us some input?
Do we have a cause? Do we know?
The cause was set as undetermined with kind of a unreported likelihood it was a cigarette butt on the outside of the deck during the drought in a planter that caused the deck to catch fire. But the official report is undetermined.
Can we get a copy of that report?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I can ask for it. I mean,
I think we'd all like to see
supposed
that.
to get one from the
No?
town, we just don't.
Or is it just me?
It's
It's probably just me.
for
what
your
you're saying?
personal amusement, perhaps? I'm not sure how
Okay.
it feeds into this.
So we're
but-
certainly interested in what's happening here. Yeah.
Kevin Leahy for the applicant. So we're obviously here under unfortunate situation, not a desire of ours, but we're gonna rebuild better. So that's the only benefit here. So we were fortunate enough to get a copy of both planning comments and comments from Mr. Hill this week, and we forced Gabby to quickly turn around comments. So today, this afternoon, we submitted a revised comment letter addressing all the comments that were raised by planning and Mr. Hill. And we also submitted a revised plan to incorporate all of those. In short, I'll take you through the plan and what we intend to do to try to get this up and running for the season. We are originally a existing non-conforming 3-story building with retail on the ground floor and 4 apartments upstairs. And the building had no parking on record. So that's the existing non-conforming history of the building. In talking to the building department and trying to accommodate as many of the current codes as possible while still maintaining the footprint, we are proposing a 2-story building with still 4 apartments. We are going to change the parking from the 4 that we proposed in the first application to 5 in the revised that we submitted this afternoon. And we incorporated a number of the requested comments from Mr. Hill and from Britton, including some additional lighting on the rear of the building, We've updated a couple of the elevations to just include those in the package. Some additional signage on the drive aisle entering off of Main Street to the back. We put a do not enter sign for a one-way entrance, so you can only enter from Main Street to the back of the building. You can no longer go from the rear of the building to Main Street. Even though historically it has been a two-way road, we're fine with making that a one-way road. Again, we're happy to accommodate as many things as possible to try to start construction and get open for the season. So, we're happy to answer any questions. This is we've kept the color scheme the same. We've kept pretty much the design the same, similar to the building that's approved across the street that we built at 115 Main Street, where Daphne's is, in an effort to streamline things. So, we're happy to answer any questions or provide any more guidance.
So now we're talking 4 apartments,
It's existing 4, and we're keeping it at 4.
and the occupancy on these 4 apartments?
They're 4 two-bedrooms, and the building will now be sprinklered, whereas previously it was not sprinklered. It had a central station monitoring system, which it will also still have, but it'll now be upgraded to a sprinklered 2-story building from an unsprinklered 3-story building.
So you're gonna have 8 potential tenants in the apartments
Correct,
and your first floor tenancies
correct,
and 5 parking spaces.
correct. Where now we have none really.
Just saying.
Question for you. Are you extending the building?
We're extending the building approximately 10 feet. Or is it 13 feet? Correct.
I just question whether you're gonna be open in time for the summer.
That's why we're here as fast as we could. We couldn't do until they cleared the scene from.
Don't look at
from the
me.
investigator. And we're ready. We've got a track record of doing a great building job here in the village, and we're ready to go. So as soon as
But we
came to get
appreciate the
approved,
fact
we,
that you've had good history here,
yeah.
both of you, and we appreciate that.
Thing I recall, off the top of my head, I don't know if I've read it wrong. Something about there's going to be a certain amount or certain portion of the gutters and leaders that are gonna be tied into the leaching pools at the
Correct.
back. Whereas it seemed like there's gonna be others which are not. Where's that water going?
So when
It's
we
going on the sidewalk.
2 years ago, when we renovated the storefront only, the prior gutters drained onto Main Street. At the request of the board, we redirected the gutters and replaced the gutters. It was previously copper gutters, and we replaced them to match the existing the new storefront. Those gutters were directed to the rear of the building, to the gravel pervious area. That will continue. The rear of the building will have new gutters that will tie into the old leaching pools that were abandoned during the sewer connection.
So you're discharging into the parking lot.
The
Well,
front
it's-
gutters discharge into a portion of the parking lot. The rear gutters tie into the existing dry well, which will be dry wells now that were the old leaching
Well,
pools.
Right?
Those front downspouts discharge away from the building, one into the driveway, one into a kind of an alleyway between the 2 buildings.
Correct.
And then eventually run onto the village sidewalk. Those have to be directed into leaching basin.
Yeah, because you're gonna
Yeah.
have all sorts of problems.
It's,
Oh, yeah.
the application is no longer just an as of right because you're expanding the building. You're expanding the retail portion of the building also. So you're gonna need parking to cover that. So
Your footprint
the site-
increasing is a
site plan
stumbling block.
requirements start coming in. They're coming in
you out of the
anyway.
pre-existing
because it's
non-conforming.
site
Well,
plan.
we proposed the footprint increase to stay so that we would not rebuild an existing non-conforming 3-story, but to accommodate a request to stay at 2 stories. The only way to do that and have 4 apartments is to have the minor increase in the rear of the building.
Well, it's
Otherwise,
an
we would-
increase. It doesn't matter, minor, that's,
Yeah, and then
That's
that,
what
and that's gonna
appreciate.
take you into a full-blown site plan review with, you're gonna have to come code compliant across the board. Unless I'm mistaken, I think that's where
Well,
we're headed.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would propose rebuilding under the code that allows us to rebuild the existing non-conforming 3-story building to accommodate the 4 apartments.
It always requires site, plan, but I mean, I think there's a strong safety component to eliminating that 3rd story over the 2nd story by putting it onto this, this was a conversation I had with the architect before we even saw the plan. It would be great, get rid of that 3rd story, put all the apartments on the 2nd.
but how do we permit that as a planning board without,
Well, I mean, no, I don't think you have to permit it without. I think you have to look at what we're doing. All right, so if there's an expansion of the apartments are parked or they're not parked, that's not changing, right? Because that's based on a dwelling unit. If we're expanding 13 by 59, that's 3 spaces or whatever, well, those 3 spaces have to be parked. I guess the question is the parking adequate? Could it be more? Is the exterior lighting or the drainage? Anytime you expand roof loads, like you have to put that drainage into capacity. So I think those are components that need to be, included. I'm sure the first flush site plan was, to get this in as quickly as possible to have this discussion, but I don't think there's any, that, it's a lot better for me as a building official to let this be 2-story than 3-story.
But does that
I don't
move us
do that,
into
yeah.
a point where the whole site now has to be fully code compliant with the current code? Not necessarily. I'm just asking the question.
I'll give you the example of parking. We usually look at what's the pre-existing nonconformity, what's the grandfathering in essence, compared to what they're proposing. As long as it's going in the right direction, it's okay. If they're going in the wrong direction, they need to get variance. So I don't know if that analysis has been done yet or provided.
No, it has been done and it's exactly correct. The grandfather pre-existing is 0. The code compliant would go 10 and we're proposing.
But but that's what you gotta show is that the pre-existing building would have required X spots provided or 0 spots. And if that determination then gets looked at by the building inspector, and if he's comfortable with it, that it's not going in the wrong direction, he won't send you to get a variance. If he's not comfortable with it, he'll send you to get a variance. So,
And that was one of Mr. Hale's comments, which we included on the revised site plan. The parking calculation table showing exactly that is now included on the revised submission that we made this afternoon.
pre-existing versus proposed.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I'm not talking about just parking now.
I know you're not, but
I'm
I'm
just
just,
trying
I'm
to
giving
figure
you
out
that
what-
example, that's, they do get some leeway.
I'm just asking, does the
Right.
board have leeway
Yeah.
or are we stuck with you're expanding the footprint? It has to be fully code compliant now.
You are permitted to expand the footprint and existing non-conforming direction, provided you don't increase any of the existing non-conformities.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, just good evening. Gabby Chillier, an architect. Thank you for hearing our application tonight again. The zoning information and computation that we provided, it complies with a structure we'd be putting back with respect to the coverage, the setbacks, the height limitations that are required by an architect to put a set of plans together. The only thing that Ken is trying to express is that the level of nonconformance that's there, we're not increasing that level. We are actually pulling back the reins and accommodating more parking spaces where we didn't have at that point.
and the benefit of having the 2 stories instead
sir.
of 3 stories. have a
Sprinkler
width.
system, yes, sir, yes, sir. And a sprinkler system, I think it's definitely better for Main Street and the community to try to reduce the structures. Case in point that it is a fire and these type of things happen. So it's definitely gonna be a benefit to the building structure.
I think the gables look nice, that series of gables across the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks.
You like Gable?
I like
When
gables.
did that happen?
I'm awakening.
Right. So the intent of us coming tonight is to try to forward the project, with the time limitations, try to get this off Main Street the way it looks currently. I hear it from my wife every day. She walks by and screams at me. So I think that respectfully, what we're trying to do tonight is to just try to keep the momentum going. Even if we need to make modifications other than the building itself, if we can get some kind of relief to start that process for the construction of the building, and we will accommodate any other aspects that the board is looking for.
I mean, I think the broad strokes are fine. I mean, I'm hoping, I think we're into technical issues at this point as far as rerouting the water and that kind of
Correct.
nonsense. I mean, I don't see anything.
And what kind of
big.
forward motion from a physical standpoint
Yeah.
is in your mind?
Correct.
So,
Oh, what is it? So what our intent is to try to get an application for the construction. To start doing demolition, start pulling out all the old rotted stuff. It's starting to get moldy from the moisture. And then, to get the frame up and encapsulated, and sided with the windows in, and then we could work inwards out respect to the utilities that we're talking about and,
So, I know we're stewards, but my first blush of looking at the application, I didn't appreciate the addition. Right. The first story addition now requires wastewater management approval to get for me to issue a building permit. So I don't know, have you started that process? I mean, that's not a planning board issue at this point, but like bumping out means I can't issue a permit for you to bump out without wastewater management. It should be truncated because it's sewer, but you understand that's a requirement on me issuing building permits.
sure,
So we got to the point of, you said, if we could get to that point, approval subject to receipt of the wastewater management, we would go and get that. I was unaware that we needed that, we'd go and get that.
Yeah, again, I first look at it, I thought we were just going up along the second story. It was until recently we were talking about it that, our planner pointed out, oh no, there's an addition here as well. So I didn't appreciate that from the beginning.
Would we, just because I think if we're gonna do demolition on the site, January is a hell of a lot better than April. But I know we're not near a final, could we do a demo, give verbal authority issue demo permit?
Well, I
as long
think
as
that's up to
the site-
Brad, right? I mean, certainly the board has input on it, and I mean, I'll certainly poll the board. I don't see any reason to create impediments to things that are not going to be impacted by the ultimate approved.
I mean, demo's not really before the board. It's like,
That's not the
they need to get it, they need to get a roof on the thing. It's what they need to do. And that,
The way we demo the building is gonna be, we're gonna demo the building in conjunction with the way we're going to reframe the building. So doing it together is very important.
Yeah, but that's where the problem is.
You're keeping the
Second and
first
third,
floor
correct.
and the first floor and the second floor deck,
Correct.
demoing everything above that.
I thought it was fully complete new construction.
No, the first floor is remaining.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what makes it difficult.
Right.
And
The
I don't,
entire-
and we don't have any documents to say this, but the third floor square footage, how does that, the existing conditions of the second and third floor apartments, how does that compare to the proposed conditions of the second floor apartment? Is it greater, is it less?
It's. Is that? what
Yeah,
you're asking?
it's the
The
second.
size of the
2,000
apartment.
square feet and the third floor is 1,500 and it's, 3,500 now and you're going to 5,000. It's just, we don't know. I would like to know whether the apartments, because one of the apartment, at least one of them doesn't meet the code, which I'm sure you may.
We corrected it. It's under 850 now. All of them are under 850. So I don't have that note in front of me. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It would be great if you could just let us
Sure.
know what the answer to it.
It's in the, EAF pages of the application. I want to say it's 6,100 total existing gross square feet and proposed in order to make everything work is 7,000.
It's
So that's.
37. Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
So going back to getting you moving, we're not talking about really a roof or framing at this point. We're talking about removing what's there and getting a deck in place so that you have a platform to create the second floor onto. Is that correct?
The way we would construct the building, given the circumstances, is, once we had an approved site, once we had, the board was acceptable to approve site plan. And conditional on, signing off on the drainage from Mr. Hill and receipt of the, DPW's sewer connection addition, and we got a building permit. As we demoed the building, we reframe it, we'd go right up to enclosed and waterproof. Otherwise, we'd have to try to attempt to demo the building, attempt to waterproof the building while we come back and wait for a building permit. It's a very, very difficult process here.
So you want to demo and put a roof up all in one fell swoop?
Oh, yeah, it'll come down and go right up. Yep.
Correct.
I don't know how we do that.
let's, if we could just go back to, Mr. Riley's first comment, you said just, what does the planning board want to see out of this site? Because there's an opportunity, there's parking going in the back. Can we squeeze more parking out, or the exterior lighting, or, is there anything about the facade? Are we doing the ARB referral? Like, what are the things you do have control over the site? Let's focus on that, because they will have, I can't issue, even if you said, great, go get a permit tomorrow, I can't issue without, if you're bumping out. That's just, That's,
Okay, well, really, the ball's in your court at this moment. I mean.
if there's something that they can work on in the interim,
Is the board able to approve subject to receipt of the health department?
No.
No, you mean today?
they are,
No.
In process.
yes. That's what we do, not today, but yes,
Not
that's,
today, though.
yeah, we no longer need health department for this board to approve. But there are things that they have to be okay with, especially since there's a bumping out happening.
But one of the things I want to make sure we, to take away the situation of the fire, if we had just come with a site plan request to bump the building out in the back, that would still be an allowable existing non-conforming addition, because we're not exceeding any of the non-conformance. So I think it's because it's in the context of because of this fire situation that's being discussed or thought about differently, but it would still be a permitted addition to an existing non-conforming building. But here, because of the context, we're also getting the benefit of reducing the third floor, providing the parking, providing the sprinklers. And we
Now, is that true? If they came, if this building hadn't burned down and they wanted to bump out?
If it meets the setbacks, it's just, you have to provide parking. And then the parking analysis, as we discussed before.
And it goes into site plan.
And you'd have drainage, the new roof load, and you would park it, yeah. But there's, and if it meets lot coverage, it meets that, but there's zero setbacks.
Because, you know,
The most
that's another
expeditious
section of the
yeah.
code that says, no matter what, they have to maintain their own water.
But if they weren't adding the back addition, if they were just coming in to make this 3-story building 2 stories within the existing footprint of the first floor,
Right.
would not trigger health department
Oh, no.
or parking. Just so we're all clear on that. The addition is what's complicating the process for you.
Well, it shouldn't trigger parking,
It-
because it's,
How can it not?
parking is dictated by the existing use. So we have 4 apartments which are existing use, and we have 4 apartments now. So the additional
Adding on to the
square footage would-
retail, it's the first floor that's the
Retail.
problem. The first floor, it's not the apartments. The
Even-
retail has a parking component, and you're expanding it, so that means. So if you weren't expanding, this would be a very easy process. That's all I want to make sure that we're clear. We can move it as fast as we can, but by choosing to put the addition on, you're making it more difficult to make it fast.
I understand. And I think the reason why we compressed it down was to try to adhere more to the code, the current code. Yeah, I understand. I see what you're saying.
But it doesn't, the apartments are getting larger because you're adding 1,000 square feet to the building. And that's not, they're getting larger. Than
So
existing.
what we can propose in the tabulation table for the parking is what that minor increase in retail would trigger.
What that increase, minor, major?
I'm saying minor because of the calculation for the purpose of the calculation. We'll put that tabulation on the table. It's likely going to still be less than, it would still not be an increase in the existing non-conformance, so it would still be a permitted item for the board to approve.
But parking is at a premium in downtown. When you have 4 apartments, the parking tend to be used on nights and weekends when the downtown parking is at a premium. So if you have some land there, I think it would make sense to try to maximize parking in the back.
And a lot of these pre-existing nonconformities that are decades old, from my experience on this board of a number of years, is it seems to be baked into the logic of the board back then that Main Street was basically vacant for 3 months, for 9 months out of the year. So there was a lot of assumption that those empty parking spaces would be used.
Wouldn't be a big factor.
So the parking wasn't a factor. Well, we're not a 3-month-a-year, summer community anymore.
And
We're
we have
9 months at a
Finite
minimum.
amount of parking.
So you go down that street pretty much anytime, day or night. I mean, half of that parking is eaten up. So a lot of that non-conformity, it's like, well, we had all this parking from 1978. Well,
It was a lot
maybe
easier
obvious,
to go
1978 's
like
gone.
that.
Yeah.
Let me say this for the applicant's benefit too. The idea that you don't need a variance for parking spaces because you're accommodating any increase, it's not preclude the board from looking at the parking lot and making sure you have as much parking as you can get. I think that's what Brad's trying to say, and Ron is, let's look at the layout and make sure we're getting as much. as well as making sure you're not triggering a need for variance. So that's all that's being discussed.
I can assure you, if we can fit more parking, we'll put it. I have no objection to that. We have looked at the site. We're happy to sit with Mr. Hill and with Mr. Hammond and determine if they think differently of where we might be able to squeeze in a spot. We're all for it. We're not opposed to more parking. The site, the way it's designed, it just kind of precludes it. It's just for the board's benefit. This is the revision site plan. What we did was we did the parking space sizes from 10 foot by 20 to the minimum allowable by code of 9 by 18, and that allows us to squeeze in.
You don't have a lot of room back there for parking.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the
I'll put parking wherever I can fit.
But
We're not opposed to that.
I would say for myself.
And I'm sure
I'd
you
rather-
guys
I'd
looked
rather
at
a
it.
two-story go than a
We
three-story.
didn't see that.
No, okay.
I mean, I'd rather see a two-story than a.
We know the parking issues as much as anything.
Well, let's let our experts revisit it. We're not gonna look at it now, I mean, obviously. But,
Why do you think they're like, when we do this comparison of spaces? Look at the old floor plan, compare the old floor plan, look at that. Don't do it on a site plan, do it as something separate that shows, for instance, you've got so many square feet in the third floor, you got so many square feet in the second story. What's the total of square footage of each one of those? Because now going to the first floor, you might have about the same amount of space. You're adding to the second floor, but you're wiping out whatever's on the third floor. So do that comparison. Also compare the space, the floor plan down on the first floor, what they are. You know,
For square
for
footage.
square foot.
I think that's on the, I think we had that tabulation on the site plan permit. We have the-
Break it up by apartment and by making use.
What's the status of the lighting? Because one thing you are not grandfathered on is lighting. And under our code, second you need a new site plan, you have to comply with the current lighting code.
Yes. Yeah, we've proposed the lighting posts for foot traffic in the rear. We are respecting the dark sky code. We've added it to the resubmission in compliance to what the village is looking for.
Yeah, but we'll need a photogrammetric plan.
I'm sorry?
We'll need a photogrammetric plan that shows the lighting is adequate to cover. And if you go into the code, there's several tables that tell you what the minimum and maximum illumination requirement, the average.
You wanna see the candlestick?
Yeah, and then summarize it as the same as the village table. Now, you're not gonna be able to totally comply with that, because it's impossible to get the min-max and the average to make the village code, but show what they are, and show what the requirement is.
What's the height of the present structure? You're proposing 32.
Yes.
So we're gonna- Not a, it's not a dramatic reduction, but it's some reduction. No, it's,
Correct.
So the highest occupied level is architecture than 80.
The other thing that we haven't really touched on, in this discussion is the handicap. If they're putting 3 new entrances on the back, we have the opportunity to, handicapped accessibility when it's readily achievable, which we're putting 3 new entrances. We should pay attention to that.
Well, they're, I guess they're not new, there are 3 entrances now in there. So they're just.
Right, when when you rebuild them, the code says that if it's readily achievable to make it handicapped accessible, then so by rebuilding it, it's readily accessible.
Oh, the entrance.
Right, to the saddles. So just so I understand, if we were to, and again, it's something I want to throw, if we came to the board and left the building exactly the way it was, all these other moving, triggering parts would be omitted, and we would be as a right to rebuild the structure as it is?
Not necessarily.
Right, so, yeah, that's,
Hold
so,
on.
Well, in terms of parking, in terms of septic,
It is in our code. You building disaster, fire, whatever, you could build it exactly as it was as of right. That's not that is in fact true. I just think it's still with the building permit, you're still sprinkling the thing, you're still upgrading certain components per my building code. I just thought it was a great opportunity to get one second story. It makes that a nice corridor. It's a lot safer. Now we're sprinkled, we're alarmed. It's, you know, God forbid you have another incident there. It doesn't get to this point.
Correct.
That's exactly. Put that, line, that, let's do this in a way specifically where we meet all the code, which, without increasing the non-conformity. That's the goal. Well, that's the goal. Otherwise you build a building, existing you just build another existing non-conformity. That, let's do all the things that would be beneficial, that would be part of code. And, and not exceed any existing non-conformance items, which we did exactly. But also provide what we can, which we did. Right, so we look at it as, we think exactly what everybody would want, so.
I don't think that's probably, I don't think there's a big dispute as to what you're trying to achieve. It's how we get from point A to point B, and we can't short circuit some of the hurdles because of the way you're doing it. You know, so I think that might be the rub is like, we can't give you the as of right greased path when we're doing different things. So.
But it sounds like the outstanding items to get to that path, assuming the board is on board with this proposed option, is updating the drainage plan for the gutters as per Mr. Hill, the photometric lighting plan to show the lighting that we've proposed and where it is on the spectrum of the.
And they're
building code.
conforming, yeah.
And then if that is acceptable, the board could approve subject to receipt of the health department's, the DPW connection for the addition. Am I missing anything?
Well, the sewage aspect falls out, as we were told, the sewage connection
Nothing to
falls
do with it.
outside of us.
They're already connected on this building,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
under wastewater management typical, which again, it's not no longer with this board, but any sort of addition to a commercial building needs wastewater management.
Yeah, I will go back with a new application, the same way we did it for our sewer connection, but with the scope of this building, and submit it to them for approval prior to building permit issuance.
Once you get that, you've got a permit.
Assuming the board's okay with this, once we provide the photometric.
And we'll drill into some of the aesthetics of it and be able to move you to architectural review and take all of the logical steps. And it'll go quick.
We try not to go to ARB, so I think that was that.
Do we have to go to ARB, Brad?
It's a change of more than 20%. It's required by code, and typically this board refers to ARB.
I mean,
It's not gonna
there's nothing stopping us from doing it simultaneously. It doesn't
Yeah,
freeze
it's not
you in
gonna hold you
place.
up.
They're just gonna wanna see what it looks like, your materials and whatnot, make sure you know,
Colors.
no copper roofs.
So could we go before them, before we start?
Would you give us that
And-
referral? while
yeah,
we're doing the
referral.
drainage and the lighting calculation?
Just so I can knock that out?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
That's probably best. I mean, I think we
can
can
do that,
hear from them earlier rather than later, because.
Get the plywood off the windows.
Yeah.
Get there by the summer, the spring, and get it going.
got
I realize
Lumber,
we all have to dot our i's and cross our t's here.
So nobody has any objection to moving the application for,
I think they can go to ARB with the elevations and the materials
Yeah.
and let them sort it out from there.
yeah.
I don't see a huge change in what we're trying to do. I think we're talking procedure right now versus the outcome. So I don't see why you can't do it in tandem. Do it all the time.
Public hearing or whether you'll waive it?
At least that one public hearing.
I think the
To help,
public,
to help, since it's a no change, obviously no increase in existing non-conformance, you could do it without public hearing.
yeah.
I
Right, they just have to vote.
personally don't feel comfortable with that. It's a very, it's a, you know, it's a
very
It's
visible
a very
site.
visible product.
Yeah.
It's on Main Street. I mean, I don't expect anybody's gonna come in and say anything, but to not do that based, you know, the history of this board has been to do that for Main Street
Right.
properties.
Public has come to me and wants to know why it's taking so long. And that's why I haven't slept in the last 6 days because of him.
People say you love it.
It's not going to add any time.
Okay.
I mean, procedurally, you're gonna have to notify and, you know, do your job on that. I think we're respectfully gonna request that you
So we'll have the metrics and the drainage, to you in the next 48 hours, and hopefully we'll held over to the next, what's the meeting on this? 23rd. 20,
So the next meeting will be January 23rd, but the next meeting eligible for a public hearing will be February 13th.
But you're gonna have to
They
get
can
all
have to
this
go.
material in and
You could make your submission that address the comments and the board could review it in 2 weeks. And then the public hearing
Yeah, it's just a simple
be
formality.
a formality.
just have your certified mail ready to go.
You're gonna be back then anyway. Who's kidding you?
Too, as well, so they can start.
Yeah, of course you will. You'd miss us otherwise.
So just trying to move this along, what you should do is, when can you get the stuff to the ARB?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have the, right, yeah,
They meet on the 21st.
okay.
So what you could do is we could refer you to the ARB tomorrow, if you can get it to me. I can make a referral without what we need.
Okay.
And come back on the 23rd with their comments. You guys can work through it. It'll be noticed for a February 13th public hearing. We can open the public hearing, see if there's any comment or not. If there's not, then I think you guys can make a decision whether you're comfortable with them. Or not.
Also have to I'll give you a type 2 letter, so you can start with the health.
We're looking at, if everything aligns correctly, probably by the first week in March, potentially for determination. That's my best guess.
Maybe the last meeting in February.
Maybe they'll tell you.
Sounds good.
That's the best case scenario.
Best case scenario.
Right.
Possible.
But it's all really dependent on if you guys can get a-
Right.
You know, if you can get us the information, we can't do it.
Yeah. We'll knock out the ARB. We'll get you that stuff tomorrow. So,
It's treating you better than us, huh? Loves you. Loves you, baby.
All right,
thank you so much.
You got your homework. Get
Thank you.
busy, stay up
Wait,
late.
wait, minor point. The building goes under the village right away. There's apparently a section of village code that comes paperwork that needs to be done where you hold village homeless or whatever. Maybe you can explain it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go over that with you, because we actually did this with Mr. Leahy, owns the old Magic's building, and had a very similar situation with the stoops, with the steps that came out. We did so there's a little triangle that just so happens that Ron was showing. We'll get that. We'll do that process, but it's a process with the town board. It doesn't really affect this, but it's something you should have and we should have. This way we cover ourselves. Yeah, it's that little encroachment that we can kind of permit and let go, but at some point in the future, if the building were to fully come down, you wouldn't rebuild that or exactly. Yeah.
okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
This isn't a public hearing, but you ladies have any comments you'd like to make, or you just?
Kind of reopen our stores, we were
Yeah.
curious of timeline.
Well, you can see. Well, you can see it in us.
It's going from 3 stories to 2 stories. Is that what?
The retail stores remain. Earliest we'd be able to start construction, it sounds like would be beginning of March.
All right,
We want you open.
Yeah.
back at you.
We'd like it, yeah.
I need a motion to close.
No, we have minutes and some other stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let me have this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, the notice.
Okay.
This wasn't it. Okay, thank you.
All right, so, in order to close the meeting, we need to approve the minutes of December 12th.
Make a motion.
All in favor? And now we needed to have a discussion about,
This can be
getting rid of the planning board.
getting rid.
What'd you say? Still here?
That's actually very funny.
So we've been all in the office working on changing the
Getting rid of the
applications.
planning
We
board, yeah.
but the record, We're gonna have an independent subdivision application, a site plan application. Once we get it baked, half baked, we're gonna distribute it out to the board. We're also gonna try and have a process flow chart, so we know what milestones we hit in terms of how an application comes in, who it gets referred to, and have something to sort of disseminate, so we all have the cheat sheet. And then one thing that we also thought would be helpful, because sometimes, board members are busy and they don't have time to come in until, a couple hours before the meeting to review the files, we thought it might be nice to take a minute at the end of each meeting to say, this is what we're looking at for January 23rd. Add that onto, so that you can know what your homework is between now and January 23rd. So that's a pretty easy review. We have the site plan for Pine Barn, which you've already seen once. We also are not distributing anything to you until after the, we didn't give you Pine Barn because it wasn't on tonight. So you will have an application for Pine Barn for the 23rd. Beaver Lake Development for the 23rd is not an application, it's just the applicant requesting to speak with you. And 104,
Is he gonna show up?
he is going to show up. 104 that was held over tonight, and potentially, 55 Old Riverhead Road or these gentlemen here, but that's what we're looking at for the 23rd.
Take all the fun out of it.
Take all the fun and the.
Just show up and go, okay, what are we doing today? Require us to think on our feet. It's too much mischief for knowing about stuff too early for our intervention.
It's still mystery.
I make a motion, we close the meeting.
So moved.
Aye.